So welcome to a Wise Body workshop for tonight, and I would like to start with acknowledging I'm on Gadigal land, and I acknowledge the traditional and ongoing custodians of the land throughout Australia and the world. And uh, special welcome to any First Nations people who are on the call tonight or on the replay. And I very much appreciate you coming and giving a try to something that might be a different kind of vibe. We'll be doing a little bit of movement tonight, and um, mostly it's just a casual conversation within your own head. But I encourage you to unmute yourself and ask a question if you'd like, or type something into the chat. But if I'm sharing the screen, I might not see the chat, so just know that I will get back to it in a moment. So, this workshop is about self love and caring for yourself, and it's through the lens of embodiment. And what that means to me is we're working on our embodiment, and that means does my action match my words? So, having that mind body connection where I have an intention and then I actually do the thing that is indicates great embodiment. And then in the workshop, we're also working via embodiment, which is to say, using this combination of words with gestures or movements. And so, in creating or suggesting those gestures and movements, there are a lot of parts of it that are dictated by the nervous system, the structure, or the reflexes, patterns that exist in our bodies. And then there will also be some individual variation. So part of what we'll be doing is trying to find a way that it really works for you and feels genuine and powerful. So my intention is that it actually you feel something right here in this hour during this workshop, and then you'll also be learning a skill that you can try in real life. It's always about how can we do something in real life, not just getting good at it in the classroom kind of environment. So I'm going to share my screen briefly and show the agenda, we'll call it. All right. So, as I said, this is about combining words and movements. So, in the first part of the workshop, we'll work on finding a set of words that um, mean the right thing, and then some gestures or movements that relate to that. And it's just about experimenting. Tonight, everything that I am leading is going to be seated, so you can be in a chair, you could stand if you choose. Um, Probably most of what's tonight you could do lying down. And I want you to feel free to adjust what I'm teaching to fit yourself anytime. Uh, all right. So in this slide, there's 5 people shown in silhouette, and they're just walking. These are the silhouettes that I use in my walking meditation signage, in fact. Um, and I'm curious if you can see differences in those people. Looking through there, would there be any assumptions that you could make? And if you want to type something in the chat, you can, and I'll just mention a few things that I have noticed about these people. Um, One thing I look at right away is how forward their weight is, because that actually can have a huge effect on the brain. And in general, being more forward is associated with being more eager or more excited or more interested in what the person is saying. And being further back might be distance or skepticism or just a more relaxed posture. Or it might actually mean something implying like distance. So you can see just in these 5 people, if you compare where their body weight is and where their head is over their body, um, they're all walking, and yet these subtle differences mean that the mood or personality or the attributes that they're displaying can be very different. Uh, this page has some info about Zoom and how to make it a little bit less stressful. From the nervous system perspective, the main thing that I will encourage you to do is to hide your own self view. I have mine off as well, and that makes it much more like an in-person meeting, and there's not this constant reminder of, "What am I doing? Do I look weird?" Um, I would love it if you leave your video on because I like to be able to see what your movements are doing, but, if you don't wanna do that, that's fine too. And you're not part of the recording, if that matters, so there'll be a replay posted, and that will just include me in the slides. Um, in this hour, you can feel free to participate as much or as little as you like, and I'm happy for you to be doing something else if that is going to help you concentrate, especially. Um, the main thing I want you to know about the movement part of it is that you are in charge of your own body. And so if I lead something that involves putting your arm up like this, and that does not feel good to your arm or your shoulder or whatever, don't do that. I will try to proactively give you options of how to do a different movement, but if it's one that I haven't mentioned yet, you can put up your hand virtually or in the Zoom room, and we'll work out a way that works the best. There's almost always something that is very subtle that has the same effect as a big movement. Um, the other thing about big movements is that sometimes there's a big emotional effect even with a small movement. So during this class, you're being asked to balance engaging and accepting the challenge that the class presents and also maintaining your own safety. And so those can be kind of up and down at different times. And the way I would like you to approach that is to aim for small changes. So just 1% more is something I love to say because 1% more creates huge changes over time. Um, for the class work today, if you are thinking of an example, I'd ask you to choose something that is less intense. Just because we don't have the capacity to necessarily take care of individual situations here, but also if you are having thoughts during the workshop or afterwards about what we're doing, I'm happy for you to let me know and let's talk through it. We can have a call or an email or whatever. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. If I can figure out, there we go, stop sharing. And all right, so I'm going to take a moment. And for me, arriving for a workshop like this, a lot of it is about slowing down and reducing multitasking. So I am going to lock the Zoom room now so that no one else can come in. And then I won't have to um, keep an eye on that. Uh, and I'm going to look at my notes periodically so I don't forget anything. Let's talk about self love. And one of the things that I always love to talk about is what is happening with the voice in my head and what's happening with the voice in your head. And the reason for that is that this voice, if you have one, is hugely important in describing your reality and it's creating things at the same time. So, in the case of self love, you might think, oh, am I expected to say, I love myself? Um, yeah, that's definitely an option. And I have worked with coaches, maybe you have too, where there were exercises like look in the mirror and say that you love yourself, making eye contact with yourself, things like that. Um, and so if that works for you, I think that is great and you should try that. Sometimes it can be a little bit too intense. If there's a moment where I'm feeling less lovable, then saying something with that much drama behind it can feel a little bit untrue. And the thing about an affirmation is that it has to be something I accept as true, or else it just doesn't work at all. So, to the extent that you're looking for words to repeat to yourself, self affirming words, I encourage you to choose something that is softer or smaller to start with. Um, so, instead of having an affirmation that's like, I'm the most amazing human on the planet, it might be like, I am okay. Or it might be like, I am perfect just as I am. And maybe the word perfect, then, yeah. So that's how what I mean about finding the right words for you. Um, and so I'd like to talk about one kind of red flag word that I hear people say a lot, so much, and that is stupid. How many times have you accidentally poured the coffee into the wrong cup and then you say, "Oh my god, I'm so stupid." It's the kind of word that just trips out people's mouths so easily, and it feels mild. It's not that harsh of an insult, but it actually cuts quite deep. And the chance that you're actually stupid is so small, so very, very small. Uh, in terms of back talk, sometimes people will say, well, what if I am being stupid? And of course, that might be the case sometimes. But I also think that this line of thought really held me back a lot. I would say, what about the truth? And truth is important. It's a value that I have. And so it took me a long time to accept that sometimes it actually does not matter if the thing is true or not. It's actually still important to take note of whether it's useful in my brain. And it's actually 100% okay to stop saying something to myself, even if it's true, um, just because it's hurtful. And I think this is one of those things that's much easier to see when you think about speaking to someone else. Would I say to my partner, "Oh my god, that was so stupid?" It's so unlikely. Like, it's just not going to happen. It would feel really rude, and I would say to myself, "Oh, to speak more kindly to this person." Um, so the idea is to be at least as kind to myself. Um, at this moment, I will just remind you that um, sometimes talking about self love is heavy, and talking about not feeling love or being uncared for is heavy. So let's take a breath or a moment and just let that sink in. And of course, since I've talked about what not to say, I want to follow that up by what to say. And so I usually call these power words, but in this case, they're almost all softening what that voice inside your head is saying rather than something that feels more like power. So I have four on this list that I really love for this category. And the first one is sometimes. Sometimes is a magical word because it's a great addition for a compliment or an insult. Takes away the power of like, "Oh, I'm the worst always," or sometimes. Um, I'm gonna question the word worst there, of course, but, sometimes I am rude to someone, but I'm not a rude person overall. So making that distinction is really important for keeping your mind out of that loop of like, oh my God, this is always the way it's going to be. Similarly, for today is another statement that I really like. You can add that to for today. I'm just going to try getting through it. For today, I'm just going to try ignoring that. For today, I'm just going to try speaking more kindly to myself. Um, and it has a similar effect with sometimes of limiting the scope of what you're promising and helping you focus on just the next right thing, the next right words to say, or action to take without it feeling like you're setting up your lifetime of actions in this moment. Uh, the other two that are great for this, I mentioned 1% more, so a little more or something like that, instead of thinking like, here I go, I'm going to completely switch myself over. Just a little bit more. I'm going to speak a little bit more kindly to myself today. And the last one is I intend to. I intend to speak more kindly to myself. And that is a reminder I can give even when I'm failing at it. Say, oh, I just heard myself say stupid again in my head, but I'm remembering I intend to speak more kindly to myself. So let's see. Um, I'm going to start a little bit of the embodiment work before I ask you to choose a statement, because there might be some of that good information from your wise body coming in that will help you pick a statement that feels really good. Um, so, so as we move into the movement part, I'll just reiterate that the movements are, I would say the movements are not athletic, but it's much more than that. They're explicitly not strenuous, small movements. And um, if you're just doing something with your hand, it might feel like it's a very tiny thing, but it can have a huge effect on our brains. Some of that's via the cerebellum, some of it's via nervous system reflexes. Um, one of the things that's really nice about doing something where you're touching your own body is that you get the benefit of your hand doing the touching, and you get the benefit of the body being touched. So it's a double whammy. And if you're doing a movement that feels fine in your body and emotionally is a little bit of a stretch or spins your mind up a little bit, then that is the perfect place for growth. So I remind you not to leap too far ahead, but staying in that place where it's just like, oh, this is a little bit weird for me. That's where that magical action happens. All right, so I'm going to sit back just a little bit so that you can see more of me. I'm gonna have to turn on my self view again so that I can do that in a sensible way. Um, yeah, there's my very clean room. All right, so as I am moving, I'm gonna be um, making statements like, now move your hand. And even when I don't say explicitly if you want to at the beginning of each of those things, it's always your choice. And I am happy for you to um, participate at the level that feels good to you. So, in terms of arriving for an embodiment exercise, one of the things that will need to happen is shifting the attention. So, part of the shift is from the past and the future into the present moment. So, leaving aside my to do list and that thing I said earlier that I'm regretting now, and all these past and future objects, leaving those aside and coming to the present moment. And that sounds a little bit abstract. But the thing that helps me come into the present moment is the sensations in my body. So, like your five senses, what can I see, hear, smell, taste, and touch? For me right now, I can hear a little bit of traffic outside, a little bit of wind. I could hear the dog moving a moment ago. I can see the wall above my desk. I can see one spider web blowing in the wind. And as your attention starts to come into those senses, you can add the shift of moving from what's happening outside to what's happening inside. Starting with the boundary of your skin, I can feel the air moving a little bit from the fan. I can feel warmth. I can feel my clothing, and I can feel the chair. I have bare feet, so I can feel the carpet. And then moving from the skin, maybe there's even things inside I can feel. Sometimes I can feel my heart beating or feel my ribs expanding. Maybe my stomach is moving. Paying attention to these sensations, it's inevitable that you stay in the present moment because it's all changing all the time. So as we sit, I would like to introduce touching the body with your hand. You can use one hand or two hands, and I'm going to start with my hand on the upper part of my chest here. And now that adds things to that list of sensations. Now it's extra warm here. I can feel a little bit of pressure. I can feel the edge of the cloth. I can feel how not all of my hand is touching in the same way. And this is all just about what the bodily sensations are right now. And if you take your hand down, you take away that extra sensation. Otherwise, does anything change? Just observing what's happening. So, one hand on your chest has a certain feeling that you've experienced. Now, maybe both hands. You can change what amount of pressure you're giving. If you're someone like me who likes a weighted blanket, then you probably like pressure. Mhm. For me, it feels comforting. If it feels constricting, less pressure. You could switch to a rubbing on your skin, getting that extra warmth and friction, maybe some more motion with your clothing. And then there's also movements that are faster, like drumming or tapping. Now, just then, I closed my eyes, but you don't have to close your eyes. You can keep them open and only close them if it feels good to do so, and if it helps you listen in to what's happening in your body. One thing to notice is that you can make a gesture that's loving with no loving feeling in it. It can just be like, you may have had a hug like that with another person, and it's just the physical. There's no emotional to it. So part of the work is letting yourself have that feeling. So I want to think about the statements that we talked about again in the beginning. Um, and I'm going to use as a sample statement, I care for myself. And I'm saying that in the present tense, I care for myself. Sounds like something I do on an ongoing basis. And there's many other things that I care for, my family, my pet, the house, the job, etc. And one of the things in that circle of things that I care for could be myself. It's one that is easy to leave out, right? But if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of all those other things. It's that simple. Um, Putting on your oxygen mask first is absolutely a legitimate principle, and being able to care for yourself means that you have the available energy, time, ideas, excitement, etc., to care for that job or that partner, that child, parent, pet, etc. Um, so I think it's important to remember what the feeling is of not having that. So I can think of times in my life when my self care was just so far down on the priority list, and I had never any decent food in the house, and I had no time to do anything for myself, and I was zooming between things, and my laundry was piled up. Um, Recalling that time and then thinking about the statement, I care for myself, makes that contrast really dramatic. Um, so I think for me, the way I think of love, love is a feeling and an emotional reaction, but it's also a verb. And for me, love means taking care of yourself in a pragmatic or a physical way, emotional way, structure, discipline, nutrition, sleep, friends, alone time, all those things that a person needs have to be scheduled in, have to be explicitly prioritized, or they don't happen. So, um, yeah. So for me, I'm going to use the statement I care for myself, and I'm going to repeat that statement while I'm doing the gestures that we talked about before. And I'm going to be searching for a combination that feels really like something I can sink into and go, that's, yeah, that makes me feel like it's true and like it's really motivating me. Um, so I'm going to scoot back again. On it. I need some different glasses, maybe. Here we go. All right, so hi, I'm Mags. I care for myself. I take care of myself. I take care of myself. I care for myself. I care for myself. Starting with a loose hug, letting my arms feel where the right places, and to me, that making the hug tighter feels good, and also putting my head down. I'm enjoying hugging and I'm enjoying being hugged because I care for myself. I care for myself. One of the visualization exercises that I like is to picture all the things that I care for in this area in between my arms. Something that I could cradle, hold, pull towards me. In this circle, I have my family and my home and my little dog and my various jobs and my friends and all of these things I care about. And here's me as well. Getting closer and closer and closer with the circle. Here's me. Oh, I care about me too. Yeah. All right, now I'm going to stand and shake it off and just kind of let myself get out of the heavy feeling for a minute and go, oh, yeah. Woo." Okay. Um, oh, if you have anything you want to share, please jump into the chat or unmute yourself. And I'm just going to check all my notes and make sure I have been saying all the things I want to say. One thing to take notice of is whether or where you feel some resistance. So you might be watching the replay, and as soon as I get to a little bit of hugging myself, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to the grocery store and take the dog for a walk, zooming out the door. Um, Noticing that is the best way to just let that fizzle away. Oh, okay. I've noticed that I feel like running away, but I've signed up for this. I'm going to give it a go. So think about if you have that moment from your past where you weren't taking care of yourself and you have a vision of the future where you're taking great care of yourself, put yourself right in the today moment of that timeline. I'm taking care of myself. And we talked about the spine and the weight of the body coming forward and back earlier. So I'll invite you to experiment with if that makes any difference. I take care of myself. Resting your chest forward or your head, eyes wide. I take care of myself. It can be almost aggressive, but certainly assertive. Take care of myself. Take such good care of myself. What about leaning back? My chair has a back. I'm going to lean all the way back and let the chair support me. And taking a moment just to feel everything is different in my body from leaning all the way back. I have my pelvis in a different position. All the curves in my spine are different. My head is different. And it's a more relaxed posture. It's a more accepting, receptive posture. So from here, I take care of myself. I take care of myself. For me, I really like this support on my back while I'm talking. I'm supporting in the front, and the chair is supporting me in the back. So there's a sandwich, and that feels very solid. Another good way that you can get this effect is to stand in the doorway, like with the door open. You can get just the door jamb right against your spine in the middle. You can push with your feet to increase the amount of support that you feel. And then again, you add the mental component. It's not just I'm feeling this pushing against my back, maybe I'm gonna scratch something. No, it's like, okay, I'm feeling support. Where am I supported? How can I be supported to take better care of myself? Using the physical to help you understand your brain and make better choices for your life. Right, I'm going to do a little bit more of the drumming. This movement is a bit more activating, whereas just pressure is a bit more soothing. One of the questions is, what do I need more of right now? Activating or maybe soothing. So, keeping in mind that the aim is to be comfortable while doing this self inquiry, is there something you could change right now to make your body more comfortable? Might want to shift how your legs are, or change chairs, or anything you need right now for your body. Let that happen. And if you're up for it, I would like to have another go. Now, it's important to know, how do you know if you're up for it? So, if what we've done so far is like a little bit uncomfortable, then I'm going to let you know we'll be going a little bit longer and possibly deeper this time, but not changing the intensity. So, you can let your body be as comfortable as possible, and also let your experimentation with the emotions be as comfortable as possible. So, choosing how you'd like to sit, I'm going to choose the sitting back option again. And I am pressing my feet against the floor to really press my back into the chair. And then I'm going to add both hands on my chest. And my statement, I take care of myself. I take care of myself. You might think about, where is this feeling familiar to you? And where do you think maybe you could use a bit more of this feeling? And what does it feel like to take good care of myself? What does it feel like when I don't take good care of myself? What does it feel like to carve out time in my schedule that's just for me? And if that's awkward, is there a place in my life where I do it quite naturally? Maybe you notice, well, when I'm getting ready for a game with the club, then I really rest well that day before. Oh, that's really good info. That means that's a good priority for you and a good motivator, and your actions are matching up with your desires. All right, now if you shake that off again, then let your eyes look all around and bring yourself back into the room and out of thoughts. What do you notice when you come out of that? Does it feel like, oh, what a relief, I don't have to touch my heart anymore? That was so. Or does it feel like, oh, I really miss that. I might want to do some more of that later? Building this skill of noticing your tiny, subtle reactions to things is the main way that you get to know yourself well. And then you can make aligned choices much more easily. Um, so that is the focus of the embodied decision making, which a specific track of classes. But the basic skill is exactly what we've been doing here, which is what's happening in my body right now and what's the emotional connection of that, and then what's the connection of my thoughts with that. Right. So we have a few minutes left, and so I'd like to add as much as I can of the habit building portion. And this is a program that I call the 4 Ps, which is ways to help yourself do something more easily. So it's being able to make a new habit that will last. And so the first question you might have is, what's the habit that we're talking about here? But I'm encouraging you to think of taking care of yourself, loving yourself, doing self care, of all those things as a habit that you will build and get better at and stronger at. And it might become a routine or not, but it will be more a part of who you are. Um, and in that case, you may not need a routine around it. It's just part of who you are. You're the kind of person who takes good care of yourself. So the 4 Ps, oh, I don't have a slide with the Ps written, but um, the first P is people. The 4 Ps are people, permission, practice, and pragmatic. And so I'm going to say the same thing I always say about people, which is unfollow without guilt. There's so many bad influences on social media, and it's so easy to have a post from a friend immediately followed by something that just makes you feel ugh. So when you notice that feeling inside, click that X, hide the person, unfollow them if you're following them. Um, it's a really good time of the year to just prioritize. I'm gonna get rid of all this junk out of my email box or my Facebook feed, Instagram feed, etc. Um, while you're building your internal wisdom about this topic, it's great to have good examples. And that could be someone who is a friend of yours or a family member who just seems to take really good care of themselves. And you can start to notice now in the people around you, like, oh, this person always has that Saturday morning time by themselves. I wonder if that would be possible for me. Or, oh, this person seems to get the time to take a bath once a week. I haven't been able to do that in ages. So, surrounding yourself with those good examples, again, is mostly about that awareness piece and being able to see who is taking care of themselves around me that I can emulate, get some good ideas from. And I always think of this woman. I went to a workshop. It was 20 years ago now, and it's still so clear in my memory. There was a sitting on the floor, circle of women in on their yoga mats kind of workshop, and the instructions had said, "Bring whatever you need to feel comfortable." And so I had a yoga mat with me, and that's what most people had. And one woman came in and she had a mat and she had several cushions and she had a little thermos of tea with her. And she just made this nest that was entirely fantastic around her. And everyone else in the room was like, "What's happening?" And she said, "Well, they said to bring what would make us feel comfortable." This just blew my mind. I always thought of comfort as like the bare minimum to make it not excruciating. And she thought of, how can I be the most comfortable with things I can bring in my bag to this workshop? So she is a fantastic example for me in my mind always of it's not about the bare minimum. It's about actually being comfortable, being making it easy for myself. Um, so in terms of making it easy for myself, that's what the pragmatic category is about. And I love the physical signs and reminders, a post-it note on the bathroom mirror or a sign over your desk, those kind of things. Um, and the second part of the pragmatics for this category is less fun, but that is schedule the time. Carving out the time is the hardest part. And if you are, for instance, telling your family no on something, or closing the door so that you can get something done, or leaving the house so you can get something done, all those things might be new or surprising to them. And I will leave you with something a therapist told me years ago, which is you might have to disappoint those people in order to take care of yourself. Um, it's a balance to strike, and most people, especially women, are doing way too much of one end and not so much of the other end. So schedule that time. Um, you'll need to practice saying that without shame. So if you're saying, "I'm going to take some time on Saturday," I won't be here on Saturday. You can say it in a way that is feels very threatened or sad, morose, like you're expecting a fight from them. Or you can take a moment beforehand to realize, like, okay, I'm the kind of person who takes good care of myself. Yeah, I'm taking care of myself. I can do it. And then from that solid, empowered feeling, you can say, I need this time and I'm taking this time. I'm going to give you permission to get that wrong because inevitably there will be times that we fuck it up on the way to getting a new habit in place. And so it's absolutely essential that you're ready to forgive yourself right away and just try again. And I shouldn't say just because I know it's not always trivial to try again. Um, that's why I like the idea of having a little reminder each day. So if you already have something that you do in the morning, you could add to it an I take good care of myself statement. Um, if you don't have like a routine where you think this could slot right in, you can associate with something like while the kettle is boiling. Um, you might use that time to do your squats, or you might use that time to talk kindly to yourself. Both of those are really good exercises to take place in those little moments. Um, so that is the list of ways to help make the habit more solid, more easy for you. Um, and probably the most important one on the list is having more people around you who are speaking kindly to themselves. So, what I would like to do now is um, I would like to just ask you to remember the moment at the beginning where we first started to think, okay, what's happening inside of my body? And I know for me, I've slowed way down. Talking about slowing down has actually slowed me down, which is nice. And my voice is a bit deeper than it was at the beginning. And I haven't measured my heart rate, but it feels like it's slowed down quite a bit. That's natural for being excited about the beginning of a workshop, of course. Um, but it's healthier for my heart to be slower, right? So slowing down without going to a yoga class, just slowing down by giving myself a little bit of self touch. I'm a big fan of the drumming, so I do that more than the pressure. A little bit of drumming. Okay, we have only 10 minutes left, but I want to mention one more thing, which is what we call the micro version. So if you're sitting at dinner with your family and you're feeling anger rising and you think, I really need to bring some self love into this moment, you're probably not going to go like this in the middle of the dinner table because that would be visible and obvious and maybe a little bit weird. So it's good to find something that you can use as an invisible or less visible version. Um, so for me, I take the pressure that I might have had here and I just convert it to the pressure of my hand on my lap. And so thinking I take care of myself, I'm solid in that desire to take care of myself and my knowledge that it's the right thing and being solid in my mind gets a little boost from solid pressure on my lap from my hands. Oh, okay. Let's see. I would love to have any questions if you'd like to ask a question either in the chat or out loud. I'm happy to hear someone's voice other than mine. Um,
I don't have a question as much as just a comment, but I really enjoy doing this, and it has been very, very relaxing. And I think it's hard sometimes when you're kind of in the habit of not really thinking about yourself and always kind of putting other people first. It's very much because it's so habitual. It's very difficult to change that, like what you were saying, like you really have to kind of think about planning this, and having time for yourself, and yeah, and really sort of changing those bad habits, and I think what I have found difficult is that um personally, like the people around me, and I don't want this to sound bad, but like friends and family, they are used to me being the kind of person who does actually always like run to them if they have a problem, or like they are used to me kind of always being there. So it's very hard to say no. Like it's hard to, like you were saying the example, on the weekend, to take some time on a Saturday and just say to people, look, this is my time now, my alone time. But yeah, I think when people are just used to you not doing that, they kind of they don't always react so well. So they have to kind of get used to like the new you in a way when you start doing this, and paying more attention to yourself and caring for yourself, and yeah. So
yeah, it's
yeah.
absolutely right. It can be a huge change in the dynamic of your relationship. And I'm definitely somebody whose default mode is to jump up and do the thing for the person when I see them starting to do it. So I know what you're talking about, and it's really true that it can be a shock for our family and a big adjustment. And um, that's why I encourage you to take it maybe slowly. And you might say, "Oh, I'd really love to go play golf for 12 hours," but what's realistic is I'm going to take 2 hours, and then maybe you
Mhm.
work up to the 12-hour day. But there's there's unquestionably a gendered component and family kind of roles, and stepping back from that is a big change. So, yeah, I agree with what you said, and I encourage you to, um, be stubborn about it so that you can take little steps, just like, "Okay, it's a little step. That was a little bit uncomfortable, but nobody said no, so I'm gonna go for it today." Or maybe somebody did say no and you're gonna say, "Okay, well, I'm gonna put it in advance for next month then." Um,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I think being a bit more stubborn. Yeah. I think it's also for us women, it's also that we are I don't really, I'm not sure who might be watching the video, and I wouldn't want anyone to be offended, but we are usually more empathetic, than men. And because we are very empathetic, it's like it's hard. It's just like in the moment, you keep thinking about the other person. If they have a problem, if there's something going on, you just want to kind of help them, so you're not, it's almost like we're not really used to, being self-centered, when you're a woman. So
yeah,
yeah, it's
very true.
something, yeah, like you were saying, you have to be a bit stubborn about it and really kind of change those things. So yeah.
Right. Because there's nothing wrong with the behavior that you're describing. It's great to be aware of what the people around us are doing and what they need, and it's great to help them and to be supportive. Um, and it's also necessary to include yourself in that list. So, um, yeah, that is a really tricky transition, and I don't have children, so I can't even imagine what it's like with children. I know that that is a very different kind of demand than a partner is, for instance. And I also know from parents that I know that it's possible, and parents can work it out to have alone time or to have the time with the kids have a different um, flavor than it has in the past, but not by saying an edict and saying it's all going to be different as of today. It's that 1%. And by taking good care of yourself, think of the example that you're setting for your children who are going to say, oh, it's okay to say, boy, I really need some alone time. Or it's okay to say, I'm prioritizing seeing this friend, even though I have to be on the bus for an hour to get there. Whatever the thing is, um, as much as I think it's important for us to have those examples, we're also becoming an example for someone else by making that change. So that's really exciting to me. So this is the kind of stuff that I do one on one, and it's very similar to what we've done here, except that it's customized to you. And um, if you want to know more about that, you can let me know. I will um, send out the replay of this workshop so that you can do the exercises again in your own time. And I would love, love, love to hear what the experience is like for you. So you can reply to my email or you can message me on Meetup or Facebook, wherever we are connected. That's great. All right. So I will close with a wish for everyone to take great care of themselves and to feel really good and strong while doing it. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take
Thanks
good
so much,
care.
Max.
Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.